Hey there, thanks for coming. Today I'm going to do a review on Cormac McCarthy's Outer Dark. We're also going to go into a little bit more emphasis on Cormac McCarthy's take on human nature and how he integrates that into his story. So in Cormac McCarthy's Outer Dark, we learn about a couple that are related, Culla and Rinthi. They have this incestuous relationship and it actually ends up producing a child. Well, Culla's not so pleased with that. He's actually quite embarrassed, and to be quite frank, he hates it. He wants to get rid of the baby, so he does, and he decides to leave the baby out in the wilderness without telling Rinthi. Throughout this story, it kind of follows the lines of an odyssey or a great journey. Culla and Rinthi end up going out and looking for the baby because Rinthi has this gut-wrenching feeling that Culla's done something terribly, terribly wrong, which he has. Little do they know, the baby's actually been taken by a tinker who lives in the town, and the baby is now lost, and Culla cannot recover it. To kind of sum that up, they all go on this journey. They meet different people, including a murderous trio. We're going to highlight that later in the video. So in this story, Cormac McCarthy really kind of tries to highlight darkness, death, bitterness, lack of caring for other people, and a lack of zest for life. This really, I think, exemplifies how he really feels about human nature and how he feels that, we live, how we are as human beings. The reason I feel this way is because Cormac McCarthy really doesn't delve into the good that people bring out, or the good things that result from being convicted or coming to conviction or realizing sin. He really just focuses on the terrible things that people do and the terrible things that people think and the way they feel. So this really speaks to me about how Cormac McCarthy might think we're evil people versus, people who live in sin but are good-natured. So something kind of unique. I think that Culla in a way resembles Cain from the book of Genesis, because when Culla tries to essentially kill this baby by leaving it in the wilderness alone, he abandons it and really kind of doesn't acknowledge what he just did. Cain really didn't have any form of, really didn't acknowledge what he did, and he was shunned and he was looked down upon, and it was really just a very, very similar story and kind of the way things went and panned out. In doing so, Culla abandoned this baby, and then he was kind of shamed by Rinthi, and Rinthi just goes on this hunt like a motherly instinct to find her baby. In certain cases, McCarthy refers to Rinthi as pale and disheveled with such doll's eyes as unpainted china. What does that really mean? It basically means that Rinthi looks empty inside. You can see through her eyes. You know how they say eyes are the window to the soul? Well, that's exactly what he's saying. He's saying that she's empty inside and she has no acknowledgement for anyone else. She really is just, all of these characters actually are empty inside, and this whole story is based around people being evil and being, just having malintent towards other characters. This kind of supports McCarthy's position, really, in human nature. He believes that people are evil. He believes that people are evil-natured, and they really just don't care for other people. A very good example, however, of how McCarthy opposes this idea is when you see all of these townspeople, willing to help Rinthi, those that are willing to feed her and those that are willing to help her alleviate herself and recover fully. Actually, Vereen Bell, from the perspectives of Cormac McCarthy, states that, most characters have virtually no thoughts. I really don't agree with this. The reason being is that I feel like most characters do think about what they do or what they say, but they want to avoid any conviction, they want to avoid any guilt at all costs. So despite, what he does to support Cormac McCarthy's position, I do feel like, yes, we are, sinful people. We have this selfish ambition, but I do think that our soul satisfaction comes from, being selfless. So I really don't see how McCarthy feels that we're necessarily evil and our nature just drives us to be evil. I think that sin overcomes in some cases, but that sin is also overcome by the good done by people. Bell also says that Culla's act is reprehensible, but it's understandable. I really can't relate. I don't think that's right. I think that's just providing an excuse. Um, I really do think that Vereen Bell sees eye to eye with Cormac McCarthy on this part, because he does think maybe we are geared towards just this evil nature. Um, I don't see how this can be. And later, Cormac McCarthy writes about Culla meeting the murderous trio, and these men are kind of an example of an aura, or like a cloud that follows Culla around, and these are his sins and the guilt almost that follows him from his first action in the story. These men are just the perfect example of how we are geared to act sinfully on something and act impulsively in many cases. But again, I really don't think that we are geared to be these evil people. Cormac McCarthy uses death so well in this story. He really keeps the reader on their toes the whole time. When I was reading this book, I didn't know who was going to die next. But in a way, this is all meaningless. All of these deaths are completely unnecessary, because it's just another death. It's just another person dying. And I think really what he's trying to do is emphasize the significance of death with these, short, quick, bursts of action throughout. But I really, really think that what he's trying to say is that none of this matters. This is all insignificant. We are just bad people, and that's what we have to live with. And my stance. I don't agree with that. But I do think that McCarthy, what he's doing, like I said, with all of these deaths, is trying to emphasize death, but also emphasize the meaninglessness of it. So, some fruit for thought. Dan Geddes, in his analysis in The Satirist, actually refers to the quote in the book where Cormac McCarthy calls the baby meaningless weight in her belly, in Rinthy's belly. And I'm also quoting Dan Geddes in this, where he spoke and he said that McCarthy is really kind of dehumanizing the concept of life. Why is he doing that? Because he's trying to emphasize this theme of evil human nature, and I really do think that this is where McCarthy stands, and this is really, the finishing stone on McCarthy's part, where I think that he's trying to really get across to the reader, we're not good people. We're actually evil, terrible people, and the point to life is nothing significant. There's no special meaning to life.